the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know.
Greetings. Welcome to Say So, where we talk about it, whatever it is, because what you do not know can hurt you. So let's get to the root. I'm your host, Letitia R. Stuckey. For today's episode, we're actually going to piggyback on the previous episode where I had the privilege of having on with me my very special guest, Brenda Kirby. And she had the testimony that she did not meet her biological father into adulthood until she was 45 years old. But during our conversation, she talked about being the middle child. And she talked about how, sometimes you're treated some kind of way. It made me think of the old television series, The Brady Bunch, where they had 6 children and they were a blended family. And specifically the relationship between Marsha, who was the oldest female daughter, and Marsha and Jennifer, I think her name was. And basically the middle child, and Cindy was the youngest daughter or whatever. So the middle child would always say Marsha, 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 because everything seemed to revolve around Marsha, who was the oldest. She was the prettiest. She was the most popular. She was outgoing, etc., etc. So it got me to thinking and wanted to delve a little deeper and get kind of to the root of some of this middle child syndrome. Is it something that's actually an issue? Do children that are middle children feel some type of way? Do they feel that they are treated equally or different, or in any way does it vary in their treatment? And I personally am a middle child myself. So I have several siblings on both my mom and my dad's side. So I'm the third sibling for each of them though. So my mom had an older son. My mom had an older son, Antoine. And then my mom and dad both had my sister, Shakita. And then I'm the third child on both ends. And with that being said, on my dad's side, I have an older sister, and her name is Quatina. So after me, on my mom's side, then I have a younger brother named Dwayne, who's 2 years younger than me. And then I have a younger sister named Jeremiah, who's about 11 years younger than me. And on my dad's side, I have a younger brother he's a junior. I call him Jay, so he's Warry Blackwell Jr. And then I have a younger sister, and her name is Kiana. So there's a lot of us, but I'm in the middle either way you go. So I did a little bit of research and just talking about birth order, right? And the personality. They're basically saying there's a science behind the middle child syndrome. So I want to dig and delve a little bit deeper into this. And if you're a middle child and you can agree or disagree, please drop your information down in the comments. I also wanted to say, and this is something I rarely say on my videos, but there's lots of good information in the description. There's scripture references. There's other references. So you can look up these articles for yourself or do your own research, just Googling certain topics and things of that nature, as well as a series of questions that are answered during each individual episode. So just know and note that it's very important. Now, we are going to talk about the belief, actually, that the middle child is excluded. So they're ignored or even outright neglected because of their birth order. So when I think about the birth order, I think about, the oldest child is typically more responsible. They're the older one. They may at some point be in charge of watching over or caring for their younger child. They may have to wash the dishes. They may have to cook. They may have to get the lunch out for the middle child or the younger siblings. They may have to iron their clothes before they get to an age where they can iron for themselves. And they just have a lot of responsibility usually in the household. So, that is can make them feel ignored, that can make them feel excluded. And then when you think about the younger child, because any middle child, regardless of how many children you have, there's an older, there's your middle children, and then there's the younger one. So with the younger one, they're typically the baby, they're typically babied, their needs are met. And also when I think about the older child gets the parents when they're most inexperienced for the most part, because they're the first child. This may be their first time having children, and they're having to learn and grow and develop along with being a parent. Now, by the time you get down to the youngest child, sometimes things are more lax. Like the older children would have gotten into trouble or gotten punished or grounded for a certain behavior that the younger child is exhibiting, but they get away with it because maybe parents are older, they're tired, they don't want that smoke or that heat. They just are trying to peacefully get by or whatever. Maybe they're too stressed, they don't have time to focus on it, whatever, or what have you. But in addition, it says that some children may have certain personality and relationship characteristics as a result of being the middle child. And it's a common characteristic of middle children, what science says about birth order and the middle child syndrome. And they ask a question, is it really true? Is this really a thing? And there's research that was done in 1960, as early as 1964, by Alfred Adler. He developed a theory. And it said that the importance of birth order and personality development. So he's basically saying the order that you're born into this world, into your family, has some bearing on your personality development. And he said that birth order greatly influences psychological development. So your personality, your mind, your thought processes, the way you perceive and view the world, etc. Now, the first birth order is the oldest child, and they say that they typically tend to be the authoritarian and feel all powerful due to the high expectations often set by parents. You may have situations and circumstances where older children actually feel that they are the parent when the parent isn't there. So they feel like they can discipline the child or the children and etc. So that's just an example of authoritarian. They feel like I'm the authority when mom and dad aren't here. Now, the youngest child is treated like a spoiled baby and can never rise above the other siblings. So this also alludes to maybe a potential issue with the baby or the children, the baby or youngest child in the family. They may feel like, okay, my birth order is set and I can't rise above. I'm always going to be the baby. And I actually had a professor in college that said that because she's the youngest, it's like every time they all come home for, it could be Thanksgiving or something like that, where the whole family and all the children go home to eat or to fellowship or just for family time. She feels like that every step that she gets closer to the door, she shrinks, because although she may be 50, 60 or older, she's still seen as the baby. So that's just a real life example of someone who is the baby, and regardless of how old they get, it's like they cannot climb out of that birth order or that position or placement in the family. Now, the middle child, they say, is typically even-tempered, but has trouble fitting in due to being sandwiched in between their two siblings, the younger and older sibling, right? Now, this is basically saying that research has since shown conflicting results. So, depending on your individual situation or circumstance, or maybe someone you know, you can go either way, because basically research is saying for some, being the middle child, it does develop your personality. Being the older child or the younger child, it does develop certain personality traits and characteristics. And there's research that says that it doesn't. So, some of the characteristics of middle children. How might being a middle child influence someone's personality and relationships? They ask that question because it's an important question to ask. Does it or does it not have an influence or any bearing on how this individual or individuals who are middle children flourish and their personality, interact in relationships, etc.? Middle children have personalities often overshadowed by their other siblings. Older siblings are strong-willed, younger siblings are the baby, so this leaves the middle child somewhere in between, right? So their personality may be dulled down, it says, by their siblings. They may be quiet and even tempered. So it may be that they're just trying to see which way the wind blows. Or they see their older sibling getting in trouble for something. So they're like, okay, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to get in trouble and suffer the same consequences my older siblings suffered. And for the younger siblings, they may see their younger siblings getting away with things that they themselves or their older siblings may have not had the opportunity or the privilege to get away with. So the other character, the other level that there's 4 different levels. The first one is personality. We just talked about that, how their personalities differ, whether you're the older, the middle, or the youngest. We're going to talk briefly about relationships, which is the second category. The third is rivalry, if there is any rivalry in between the children. And the fourth is favoritism. So as it pertains to relationships, many have trouble fitting in or feeling equal. And this is talking about the middle child in their parental relationships. Okay, so now the older sibling, which holds more responsibilities, and the younger sibling is usually very well taken care of by the parents. The middle child isn't given as much attention as either. So you may have experiences that pros or cons, or that is for or against this statement. So I would like to know, as a middle child, do you feel like you were given the same amount of attention as the older child or the older children or the younger children? Like in my family, my grandmother had 7 girls. So that she had like 3 older ones, a middle one, and then she had the 3 younger ones. And the personalities and everything are different. So if you speak to one of the older ones, they may have a completely different experience than the younger one. And I've heard, like, at family functions where they talk about that, mama wouldn't let us get away with this, and mama wouldn't do this, and mama wouldn't do that. But by the time this child came along, it's just like, whatever, the things that we got in trouble for, they get to go ahead, they get away with murder, is what they, how they say it or term it. Now, as it pertains to sibling rivalry, which basically just means that there's a clash between siblings. And sometimes it can be due to their boys. There's testosterone. They like to wrestle. They like to fight, etc. Because I have 2 boys. Or it could be females. You touching my stuff. They irritable. It's that time of the month. They trying to take each other boyfriend and this, that, and the other. So there can be some frictions or rivalry. So those are just examples of sibling rivalries. Now, as it pertains to the middle child, they often feel a need to compete because they feel like, okay, the older one is authoritarian. The younger one is taken care of. They're the baby. They can't do anything wrong in mom and dad's eyes. So where do I fit in? So they feel like they have to compete. Maybe try to one-up them or make better grades or just perform better, outperform the older one or the younger one or anybody else in the middle. If there's more than 3 children, then anybody that's not the older child or the younger child is considered the middle child. Now, it's important to know and to note that they feel like they have to compete for their parents' attention, right? So in the middle of everything is where they seem to find themselves and feel like they are. And they may become the peacemaker. Because maybe, let's say, the older child is beefing or has an issue with the younger child. Maybe the older child's taking care of the younger child. And the child is having a tantrum or not having a good day or irritable or whatever, what have you. And then the middle child may feel like I'm the peacemaker. So I need to step in and maybe take over and kind of help my older sibling with my younger sibling, just to keep the peace, just so nobody's stressed. That's just so it's not overwhelming in the household until our parents return or, just during the time that we're here by ourselves or whatever. As it pertains to favoritism. Favoritism is just what it says. The root word of favoritism is favorite. So saying that somebody's the favorite, they may feel like the older one's the favorite or the baby is the favorite or whatever, but we're going to delve a little deeper. So it says middle children generally don't feel that they are the favorite child. Favoritism may exist for the oldest child who is viewed as special or the youngest child who is viewed as the baby. But The middle child falls somewhere in between. Like I said, they're sandwiched in between older and younger. They fall somewhere in the middle. So they may feel like they're unable to be the to be the favorite of either parent, simply because they're in the middle. All right, so they ask a question: how does it affect adults? Now, so does the personality and the relationships and the way them having to be even tempered and kind of see which way the wind flows and be the peacemaker in the home, does that carry over into their adult relationships or become a part of their personality? Now, it's believed that middle child syndrome can have a lasting impact on children as they grow. So it says it could cause a cascade of negative effects in their adulthood. The personality and the relationship traits that are defined as a child may develop into similar traits in their adult relationships, or they may just carry on being the peacemaker, being the one in between, being the one that's even tempered, being the one that doesn't want or get a lot of attention and things of that nature. So the example is given. For example, middle children who feel they are neglected may struggle with codependency in adult relationships. So codependency is basically an unhealthy dependency on one another. So I can't do anything without you. You can't do anything without me. They're extremely clingy and they almost want to do everything together to a disadvantage so she may not have any female friends. He may not have any male friends. I'm everything you need. I'm all you need. So he may be drug along to the mall to shop and all of these things, and she may be drug along to the basketball games or whatever, simply because they're so dependent on one another. They don't want to do anything without the other. And it's almost like an addiction. And you do find these in relationships where there are addictions, where they do everything together. They may do their drugs together. They do everything together. Even if one gets money from family or somebody, they bring it all together and they do everything together. Even the unhealthy things such as substance abuse. All right. So, also it says that their personality, and we're still talking about the middle child syndrome, it might be dulled in comparison to the personality of other adults around them. And that's, once again, comes from being in the middle, not really knowing where you fit or if you fit or when you fit. So you just kind of keep a low profile, and that could dull your personality. So instead of being as outgoing as you would have been if you were, let's say, the oldest child, because that's kind of expected and that's kind of the norm, because they had the parents first and it was just them. So they're used to being the center of attention and the focal point of things. It could be at family functions where they're used to being the one that has a song and that wants to dance or that wants to, do poetry or do something where there's a lot of attention on them for that time being. So it also says that they might have, this is the middle child syndrome, they might have trouble feeling that they can be somebody's best friend or their partner, that they can be the favorite. And this comes from their experience with favoritism and they not being the favorite. So even if they are the favorite, or even if they really have a trusting best friend or a trusting significant other, they may never feel or embrace that they are the favorite. They may still feel insecure. They may still feel that something or someone is more important than them, because in their childhood that seemed to be the case, because there were multiple children. Now, the question is asked, what does science have to say? And we alluded to it a little bit earlier, that basically there's conflicting thoughts. There's evidence against, there's evidence for. It just, you, I guess, would be the best judge. What were your experiences like? And those in your family, or those that you went to school with, or just different things that you may have picked up growing up and developing on being the middle child, the older child, the younger child, and the advantages and or disadvantages with those roles. So basically, science is still being explored. There are common beliefs that the middle child has distant relationships with their parents, and that the middle child is less likely to feel comfortable talking to their parents about sex education. And I'm not sure why they threw that in, but they did. So they actually had some information from a study in 2019, and it reported that it was easy to talk to parents about sex at age 14. It said 29.4% of middle-born women noted that it was easy at 14. I don't know who talked to their parents about sex at 14. Anyway, all right. So among males or the men, there were 17.8% that the middle children or the middle males born in the family found it easy to talk to their parents about sex. Now, there could be a difference because, it may be more easily acceptable for the boys to talk about sex than the girls. And so we have to weigh that into the percentages and the factors as well. Now, the it's as 21.4% of last born children found it easy to talk to their parents about sex and sex education. Now, it talked about an earlier research study in 1998 that says that middle born children are least likely to say they are the closest to their mothers. According to this research, it says they're also least likely to say that they would turn to their parents when they are under duress. Duress just means stress, or there's something going on and they need some help or some relief or something. So it says that they're least likely to turn to their parents. And it could be that they feel like their parent, depending on the number of siblings they have, they could feel that they don't want to overburden their parents. They don't want to stress them out. They don't want to, add extra weight or anything extra to their parents because they understand all too well the plight of the parents and that they have so many other siblings. So once again, that's that not ever really having that attention that's needed and necessary, and they themselves may shun that attention. I don't want to involve my parents with this thing. Just something to think about, to know and to note. Now, there was a recent study in 2016 that explored the effects, of birth order. Now, there were 320 undergrad students, which means that they just haven't, they're not in graduate school. They may be working towards their associate's degree or their bachelor's degree. So it basically says that researchers found that middle-born children were more likely to be less family-oriented than their elder siblings. And one of my previous episodes, I kind of talked about that, how I found out that I was feeling some type of way about my family. And it may be that because I was the middle-born child or whatever, but it was just basically rooted in my childhood and some experiences that I had. And when it came to like listing how important family was, I had to team up with another girl, and family was like her first three or something, and family was like my bottom three. It may have been the next to last or last. And that got me to thinking after that activity, and this was when I was in undergrad as well, getting my associate's degree at Forsyth Technical Community College. But basically they're saying that they're less likely to be family oriented. Now, the middle-born children are more likely to develop maladaptive perfectionism. So basically, anything that's maladaptive is negative or is adverse. So it's not something that you want or need to adapt to. So it's like perfectionism to an extreme, where they have to be in control. They have to do everything perfect. They can't make any mistakes. They're extremely hard on themselves. And if I be honest, I've experienced some of that and didn't really know where that was coming from. Also, this is common when children are adopted or in the system, like in the foster care system, because they feel that they have to perform or be perfect because they don't want to get in trouble, or they don't want to, like I said, stress anybody out or put any more on the person, their stress load, than is already there. So I found that to be somewhat true in my personal testimony and story of survival. So it also says that the maladaptive, which is negative, extremely negative, perfectionism is characterized by the constant desire to have things go as planned. And once again, that may come from living in an environment where things weren't planned. Things just came up, sudden things, crises, and things of that nature. It could even be that whatever birth order they are, the other children after them, or maybe the children before them, weren't necessarily planned. So it was chaotic, kind of. So to speak, in their environment. So for them, control is really important. I need to know where this is. I put it in one place so I know where it is when I need it. I need to know that A equals B plus C. I need to know that all of these things are going to line up and go according to plan. Now, it says basically the results are significant as it pertains to a lot of these studies. So basically, research showed that middle children, being 33%, are more likely to engage in delinquent behavior than their older siblings. And that's what they're saying is really non-significant, simply due to chance rather than birth order. Because it doesn't necessarily mean because you're a middle-born child that you're going to be exhibit delinquent behavior. I, for one, didn't exhibit delinquent behavior. I don't have a record. I never did. I didn't get in trouble. Never been arrested. Never, anything major. So I guess it varies from person to person. And they also did a study in 2003 that found that middle children are more likely to develop depression. Now, guess what? A follow-up study to this in 2016 found that the oldest children seem to be more likely to develop mental illness such as depression. So it really varies. It varies as it pertains to their coping skills and things, how they deal with things, regardless whether you're the oldest child, the middle child, or the older child. And time is fleeting, so we're going to have a part 2 to this middle child syndrome exploration. So I want you to remember that God and only God has the final say-so about where you are now, where you have been, and where you are going. You are simply in the process of becoming. Until next time, miracles and blessings today and every day.